Hello, welcome back to the Desk Corner, or if you're new here, welcome to my channel. And I'd like to acknowledge in today's video that it is in fact Inktober, and it's also in fact halfway through October, and I have not been posting as many videos as I would have liked to, because there was a lot going on. But now you guys, I am ready. Okay, everything that I didn't do at the beginning of October, we're going to do in hyper speed. Maybe not hyper speed. We're not going to rush any artwork here. But today I wanted to do an Inktober inspired piece since I'm not doing the challenge this year. This year I've sketched out this rose on Strathmore Bristol Smooth paper, so we're gonna see how that goes. That might have been a mistake in choice here, but that's the paper that I'm using. I don't really have that many inks. I only have white and black Winsor and Newton ink, so we're obviously going to go with black, which you can dilute with water, and I'm hoping I can kind of paint on here. The only problem is the paper might not handle it. This could be a complete disaster. I've got Fineliners. I think I'm going to line this first and then decide what to do as far as the ink goes. Does anybody else have an issue with fine lining? Because for me, I find that when I try to fine line something, my hand will be a little bit shaky or it just won't stay as still as I would like it to, and I'm not able to get that perfect line without any inconsistencies, because you have to keep moving your hand so the ink doesn't bunch up and doesn't bleed, and because of that you can't move as slowly as you would like to, but at the same time when you're trying to connect two lines you only have one chance to do it, if that makes sense, and sometimes you might miss. But I think I did okay with this particular drawing. Luckily it wasn't extremely detailed. I'm using my Faber Castell size small Pitt fineliner, which I just have a lot of these fineliners, a lot of the Faber Castell ones that I like to use up for journaling and fine lining whenever I do it, but I haven't tried a lot of fine liners to compare them to anyways besides microns. So you could see I'm just sketching in the stem and leaves, and then I'm going to go in with the extra small fine liner and add in some fun details to make the outline more interesting. What we're going to do is just create value with the black ink, and I want there to be some fun details underneath, because otherwise this might be a little more plain than what I'm hoping for. At this point, I kind of wished I had colored inks because that would show up so nicely with the black detail popping out underneath, but that's something I'll look into for the future. Maybe get a set of colored inks and see if I enjoy using them for pieces like this that are stylistic. I erased any pencil lines, of course, after the ink dried before we get started, and this is a very old messed up palette I thought I could use to mix the ink with some water without destroying any of my other palettes. There's my black Winsor and Newton ink. I have just such a little small jar of it because I just don't use ink enough to warrant buying a larger amount. I'm obviously using an old paintbrush that I'm not going to use for anything else for this project, and I started off with some very dark ink that I went in with some water to then dilute a little bit. Now this particular paper is not notable for being able to use water on top. The water very much kind of slides around and doesn't absorb into the paper well, but I figured I wouldn't be using a huge amount of water with this, and it shouldn't have too much of an issue, although watercolor paper might have been a better choice and will be my future choice if I do another project like this. I just find it hard to fine line sometimes on watercolor paper, even the hot pressed paper sometimes, but I think that's what I'm going to have to do in the future. What I ended up doing was kind of taking some of the black ink out and placing it on the palette so that I had a darker black, but of course the ink can dry kind of quickly, so I had to work quickly, and then the rest of it I would dilute with water in a separate area. And then I would add some more clean water into my painting as well in case I wanted an area to be a lot lighter. So that was my initial method for doing this. I kind of just let the ink spread out on its own, and then later I would add in shadows and darker areas. And I do like sometimes working just with black because you just work with value and you don't have to worry about color. So that's something that's fun about creating a project like this. What I found challenging though was diluting the ink enough to then create a lighter value and then not accidentally messing it up with the darker ink, because once you get that dark ink on your brush, it's very hard to wash it out, and I didn't want to actually wash it out and waste ink, so I would kind of just brush it out onto the palette and try to get as much of it off as I could, and then, you know, use the rest to dilute some water into it and create a lighter value. But since the pigment is so intense, it's very hard to dilute it. And so that was the one thing I did struggle with this painting. I'm just gonna call it a painting because the majority of what I'm doing is with a paintbrush. Anyway, I decided that I would go in later with a white gel pen to add some fun highlights, because that would help create the contrast that I wasn't getting just with the ink itself. Looking back, I could have used a bigger brush in some areas, but I didn't want to use up 2 whole brushes to dedicate to ink, since now the brush, of course, is kind of stained, so I'm just going to leave it for any future ink projects. Since I didn't want to resignate any other brushes to that, I decided to just go with a smaller brush where I could still get a nice amount of detail, and so I'm happy with that choice as well. I really do like how when I dilute the ink with water, it becomes this warm color, almost the same as charcoal when you use charcoal powder. So it's very similar to that, and I do like the warm toned result that I got with it. You could see there I was trying to create a little bit of texture on some of those petals, and some areas are very, very dark with the blacks, and I'm not sure that they blended so seamlessly into the other areas. But I will say that when I'm working on a stylized piece like this, all the blending doesn't have to be seamless, and I'm okay with there being just a little bit more definition in certain areas than I would use for a very realistic piece. I think I'm going to take a little break talking about this painting to talk about Inktober. I'm curious if you guys are doing Inktober, or if you're an artist here on YouTube as well, how you're incorporating it into your channel if you are doing it, because the reason I haven't done it the past 2 years is I felt like it would interfere with the ability for me to create content here on YouTube, and I wasn't sure I wanted all of my content to be Inktober, because I did that in 2019. I came out with a good 4 or 5 Inktober videos, and it did take up a lot of extra time, but there are benefits to this challenge. You can improve your skills in whatever medium you choose to use, and by the end of the month you will definitely feel like you accomplished something. So I might do it again in the future when I do have more time, if that ever comes, if the time ever comes that I do have extra time. I would like to maybe do it again. For now though, I am satisfied creating these Inktober inspired pieces. Maybe I might do one more this month besides this one. I think that this was really fun and just enough for me to enjoy and post here without it interfering with anything else I'm creating this month. As you can see, I'm now creating all those details with the white gel pen, which is honestly sometimes my favorite part. It's just so much fun to create these details. Yes, I could have used white ink to do this with a paintbrush, but I was far too lazy to work on all those details with a paintbrush, so I decided the white gel pen it is then. I love my white gel pen so much, and I think it really made my drawing pop out. And I liked how this turned out. At the end, wait till you guys see what I do with the leaves. I think I really made the leaves and stem stand out a lot, and I definitely want to try another art in this style in the future. The sideways drawing, sorry you guys. I sometimes like to flip my work around depending on the medium I'm using to get a certain angle when I'm working on something. Okay, you guys, I'm calling this finished now. This was a lot of fun working on this. I like working on projects that are shorter like this. They don't take as much time, you get it done, and it's just fun. And I think the moral of the story here is get yourself a white gel pen if you don't have one, because apparently you can use it to fix anything or make something bland pop out a lot more. But I hope that you guys like how this rose came out. I'm not sure if this paper was suitable. I think I should have used a watercolor paper, but I wanted to use something that was easy to line with the Fineliner, and I wasn't using so much water that this was too much of an issue, so I think the paper did decent for what I was doing. But I think I will try to make some ink pieces in the future, especially if I get some more colors. I hope that you guys enjoyed this Inktober inspired video. Let me know in the comments if you are doing Inktober and if you like working with inks in general. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you as always so much for watching today. Bye!